It depends on which character it is.
Depends on which character it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Seth Rogen in general is a pretty funny guy, so I'm gonna put my faith in him that he's true to the original.
And, Seth Rogen in general is a pretty funny guy, so...
Seth Rogen in general is a pretty funny guy, so I'm gonna put my faith in him.
Is a pretty funny guy, so I'm gonna put my faith in him that he's true to the original.
That he's true to the original. So Cassie and I are keeping our conversation going for a little while longer here.
So Cassie and I are keeping our conversation going for a little while longer here. So Cassie and I are keeping our conversation going for a little while longer here. So Cassie and I are keeping our conversation going for a little while longer here, and we've prepared some fun rapid fire style questions. And we've prepared some fun rapid fire style questions.
And let's jump into them, Cassie. Number 1. I don't know if you have an answer for this off the top of your head, but that's what makes rapid fire fun.
Number one.
I
don't know if you have an answer for this off the top of your head, but
I don't know if you have an answer for this off the top of your head. 바로 떠오를지는 모르겠는데 I don't know if you have an answer for this off the top of your head, but that's what makes rapid fire fun. What's one movie or video game that you think should never be remade?
What's one movie or video game that
you think
should never
be remade? What's one movie or video game that you think should never be remade? 절대로 리메이크 되면 안 되는 영화나 게임이 있다면? What's one movie or video game that you think should never be remade? Remade. I do have an answer because I read the question ahead of schedule.
Do have an answer because I read the question ahead of schedule.
I do have an answer because I read the question ahead of schedule. So I got one in my brain. This movie was pretty low budget and it's kind of a cult classic.
This movie was pretty low budget.
And it's kind of a
cult classic.
And
I never want it to be remade, and that is The Princess Bride.
I never want it to be remade, and that is The Princess Bride. I never want it to be remade, and that is The Princess Bride. 이대로 다시 만들어졌으면 안 만들어졌으면 좋겠어. 그럼 바로 Good answer.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Such a good movie, and
I mean, it's not even like amazing movie.
I mean, it's not even like an amazing movie.
It's not even like an amazing movie, but it's just so full of great one-liners.
But it's just so full of great one-liners and
It's just so full of great one-liners, and the characters are so
characters are so quirky. They
the characters are so quirky.
cannot be remade.
They cannot be remade. Impossible.
Impossible. Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. Inconceivable. Impossible. Inconceivable. I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
I agree with you completely. That's a
I agree with you completely. Completely. That's a great choice.
great choice.
Great choice. And I think that movie is very funny.
And I think
That
movie is
you know, that-
very funny. It's got a
And I think that movie is very funny. It's got a lot of comedic elements to it.
lot of comedic elements to it. And
Comedic elements to it. It's got a lot of comedic elements to it. It's got a lot of comedic elements to it. 이렇게 코미디적인 요소가 되게 많아. It's got a lot of comedic elements to it.
it's got a lot of comedic elements to it. And
It's got a lot of comedic elements to it, and it also has a lot of like real unique actors.
also has a lot of like really unique actors.
And it also has a lot of like really unique actors like
Like Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant,
Like where else are you gonna find a guy like that?
like where else are you gonna find a guy like that? 어디 가서 그런 사람을 찾겠어? Well, where else
Where else are you gonna find a guy like that?
Where else are you gonna find a guy like that? Where else are you
Like where else are you gonna find a guy like that?
Where else are you gonna find a guy like that? Where else are you gonna find a guy like that? So I think any comedy,
So I think any comedy, some of
comedy, and so I think any comedy,
my favorite movies are those like 90s comedies.
some of my favorite movies are those like 90s comedies.
I think I've talked about Dumb and Dumber on
Like what?
comedies. I think I've talked about Dumb and Dumber on Tulips a lot.
A lot.
It's my favorite comedy. And
Comedy? I think I've talked about Dumb and Dumber on Tulips a lot. It's my favorite comedy. It's my favorite comedy. Comedy. I think I've talked about Dumb and Dumber on Tulips a lot. It's my favorite comedy. And like you could never remake that.
And like you could never remake that. Like Jim
And like you could never remake that. And like you could never remake that. You could never remake that. Like Jim Carrey,
Carrey is such a unique comedic actor that
comedic actor. He's such a unique comedic actor that there would be nobody that could play him to the same extent.
be nobody that could play him to the same extent. It just would never.
To the same extent. He's such a unique comedic actor that there would be nobody that could play him to the same extent. Could play him to the same extent. It just would never work.
It just would never work.
It just would never work. And all of my favorite like comedies from when I was younger.
My favorite like comedies from when I was younger, I would
And
improve on the original. Or my favorite like comedies from when I was younger, I would
And all of my favorite like comedies from when I was younger, I wouldn't touch them.
Touch them. I would never try to remake them.
I would never try to remake them. I wouldn't touch them. And all of my favorite like comedies from when I was younger, I wouldn't touch them. I would never try to remake them. I agree. The actor was born to play that role.
I agree. The actor was born to play that role, and
The actor was born to play that role.
the actor was born to play that role, and
The actor was born to play that role, and nobody can replace them.
nobody can replace them.
And nobody can replace them. And nobody can replace them. Cassie, have you ever seen a movie remake that you think is better than the original?
Cassie, have you ever seen
Have you ever seen Cassie, have you ever seen a movie remake?
a
Movie remake that you think is better than the original? Cassie, have you ever seen a movie remake that you think is better than the original? Have you ever seen a movie remake that you think is better than the original? Cassie, have you ever seen Cassie, have you ever seen a movie remake that you think is better than the original? Is it possible to improve on the original?
Is it possible to improve on the original or to
Is it possible to improve on the original, or do we always just think that the remakes are not as good?
we always just think that the remakes are not as good?
Not as good. Or do we always just think that the remakes are not as good? Or not as good.
Think that the remakes are not as good.
Remakes are not as good. Or do we always think that the remakes are not as good? Are not as good. Do we always just think that the remakes are not as good? That's a good question.
It's a good question. I saw a remake. This one is not super recent, but
I saw a remake. This one is not super recent, but it was a Disney remake.
it was a Disney remake.
It was the Mulan remake.
It was the Mulan remake.
It was the Mulan remake. Mulan. It was a Mulan remake. It was the Mulan remake. I really liked some of the new songs in the remake.
Remake? I really liked some of the new songs in that remake.
I really liked some of the new songs in the remake.
Really liked some of the
I really liked some of the new song.
really liked some of the new songs in
I really liked some of the new songs in that remake.
that remake.
In that remake. I really liked some of the new songs in that remake. I love all the songs too.
I love the old songs too.
I love the old songs too. I love the old songs too. But I thought some of the new songs were like a head bopper.
But I thought some of the new songs were like a head bopper.
But I thought some of the new songs were like a head bopper. So yeah, that remake, the song choice, top notch.
So yeah, that remake, the song choice, top notch.
Yeah, that remakes the song choice, top notch. Top notch. Check. I haven't seen the original.
I haven't seen the original, but
I haven't seen the original. I haven't seen the original, but many people have told me that the new Dune movie is better than the original Dune movie.
But many people have told me that the new Dune movie is better than the original Dune movie.
But many people have told me that the new Dune movie is better than the original Dune movie. So I saw the newest Dune movie.
The newest Dune movie?
I saw the
newest Dune movie.
So I saw the newest Dune movie, and it was cool.
And it was cool.
Kind of thought it was a little bit boring.
I kind of thought it was a little bit boring.
좀 지루하다고 생각했긴 했는데 I kind of thought it was a little bit boring, like
cool but boring and a little bit long. But
cool but boring and a little bit long. 좀 멋있긴 한데 좀 지루하고 길었어. I kind of thought it was a little bit boring, like cool but boring and a little bit long. Like cool but boring, a little bit long. But you know, I don't know if I want to go back and watch the original per se.
I don't know if I want to go back and watch the original per se because I heard that it was just much better than the original. So that's one example I've heard of.
So you know, I don't know if I want to go back and watch the original per se because I heard that it was just much better than the original. It was just much better than the original. So that's one example I've heard of it. This is something that I've never watched.
This is something that I've never watched,
but I'm actually curious about your opinion. Have you seen all of the Star Wars?
Have you seen all of the Star Wars?
Yeah, I've seen all of the original trilogy.
Yeah, I've seen all of the original trilogy, and I've seen some of the prequels.
And I've seen some of the prequels.
I've seen some of the prequels. I've seen some of the prequels. 속편. I've seen some of the prequels. Prequels. But I lost interest in Star Wars.
But I lost interest in Star Wars. They just
They just started coming out with too many. They just started coming out with too many. There's too many movies and too many characters.
Too many movies and too many characters. I was never like a huge passionate fan of the series
to start with. So yeah.
Okay, I know like the originals were life-changing for some people.
Okay, I know like the originals were life-changing for some people. I'm passionate fan of the series to start with. Okay, I know like the originals were life-changing for some people. 그러니까는 그 원작이 인생을 바꿀 만한 거였다. 어떤 사람들에게는 인생을 변화시킬 만한. were life-changing. Well, life-changing. I know like the originals were life-changing for some people.
I know like the originals were life-changing for some people.
I know like the originals were life-changing for some people. When the prequels came out, which were made a lot later.
People. When the prequels came out, which
When the prequels came out, which were
made a lot later,
later,
did you think they were up to snuff
up
with
to
the
snuff
originals? Were
with
they
the
as good?
originals?
No,
Did you think they were up to snuff? They were up to snuff? Did you think they were up to snuff?
Think they were up to snuff with
They were. Did you think they were up to snuff with the originals? Were they as good?
the originals? Were they as good?
Were they as good? No, they were so terrible.
no, they were so terrible.
No, they were so terrible. No, they were so terrible. No, they were so terrible. I remember when the prequels came out, like the Phantom Menace.
I remember when the prequels came out, like the Phantom Menace.
And
I don't remember exactly the
I don't remember exactly the
name. It might have been the Phantom Menace.
It might have been the Phantom Menace. I don't remember exactly the name. It might have been the Phantom Menace. 아마 Phantom Menace였을 거야. It might have been the Phantom Menace, but there was a character named Jar Jar Binks.
But there was a character named Jar Jar Binks.
Binks.
And Jar Jar Binks,
Jar Jar Binks was just
laughable.
laughable.
Yeah, I just knew right from the
Jar Jar Binks was just laughable. Laughable. 웃겼어. Yeah, I just knew right from the start.
The start that they weren't anywhere near the quality of the originals.
Yeah, I just knew right from the start. 처음부터 딱 알았어. I just knew right from the start that they weren't anywhere near the quality of the originals. Weren't anywhere near the quality of the originals. 원작의 근처에도 못 갈 거라는 걸 맨 처음부터 알았어. 딱 알았어. I just knew right from the start that they weren't anywhere near the quality of the originals. Yeah, I never seen them.
Yeah, I've never seen them, but
I've never seen them, but I was wondering if
I was wondering if you'd seen them and
you'd seen them and
had an opinion.
you had
But
an
Cassie, I would
opinion.
love to know our listeners' opinions about this topic because
Cassie, I'd love to know our listeners' opinions about this topic because I think it does bring out a lot of passion in people.
I think it does bring out a lot of passion in people, and
I think it does bring out a lot of passion in people.
surprised to see in myself even how
I was surprised to see in myself even how strong
my
opinion
were about this topic.
topic. And I was surprised to see in myself even how strong my opinions were about this topic. So guys,
we're gonna throw things over to you. We would love to know what you think. Please,
we're gonna throw things over to you. We would love to know what you think. Please let us know by leaving a comment on our website.
let us know by leaving a comment on our website or discussion forum, or even by sending us an email. You can reach us at contact@culips.com. So take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.
Goodbye.
See ya.
See ya.
Simplified Speech, episode 174.
Simplified Speech, episode 174. What do you think about remakes? Featuring Andrew and Cassie. Today, joining me for this episode is my co-host Cassie. Hello, Cassie. Hello, Andrew, and hey, listeners. Hope you're all doing well. Great to be here. So, Cassie, today, actually this morning, we were talking about what we should talk about on simplified speech for this episode, and you came up with a great idea. So maybe I will throw things over to you to let us hear about what our topic is for today. Okay, so we are going to talk about remakes. I don't know exactly when this episode will come out, but when we're talking about the idea, The Little Mermaid live action remake had just been debuted like a week ago. And The Little Mermaid has been getting a lot of attention in media. Some people are really excited about this remake, some are not. And I thought this would be a good topic to talk about, not just The Little Mermaid, but remakes in general. Yeah, and as soon as I heard your suggestion, I thought it was amazing because I was also reading about video game remakes this week, in fact. So it was kind of a coincidence that you brought this topic up. And I have been thinking about remakes I have been thinking about remakes as well. And so I think we will have a lot to talk about. And with that being said, I think we should jump into our main topic for today. So Cassie, our topic is remakes. And like you mentioned at the top of the show, there is a brand new remake of The Little Mermaid, the classic story, The Little Mermaid, which was originally a Disney animated film. I guess originally it was a book, right? A children's book. That's true, yes. And then the book was remade into the animated movie in the early 90s. And then finally, now just this year in 2023, we have the live action movie. And maybe we should talk about what a live action movie is. What is the difference between an animated film and a live action film, Cassie? An animated film is just made through artwork animation. However, a live action film is made completely through live actions and CGI for the animal characters usually. Now, have you seen this movie yet, Cassie? The Little Mermaid, or are you planning to? I'm planning to see it. I have not seen it yet, but I have seen several of the other somewhat recent Disney remakes such as The Jungle Book, Lion King, Aladdin. You're a little bit more knowledgeable about this than I am because I haven't seen any of those remakes, unfortunately, but I have seen the originals and I will try my best to follow along. Maybe Cassie, you can answer more of the questions about the differences between the originals and the remakes. But let's go back to The Little Mermaid for a second because there is a lot of controversy around this film. And I think right off the bat, when I hear about a remake, I think it's going to be a little bit controversial because there are the purists. And a purist is someone who just really believes that the original is best, right? So there are maybe Little Mermaid purists who are like, there's no way that you can beat the original. The original animated movie is so good. It's perfect. It's a classic. And if you remake that story again, then it will maybe ruin the story a little bit or ruin the kind of nostalgia that person has about the original animated film. So I think right off the bat it's controversial. But this movie in particular is extra controversial. And maybe we should talk a little bit about why that is. Could you give us some details? Yeah, sure. This is a little bit more controversial because the main actress that was hired, Halle Bailey, is extremely talented and makes a perfect mermaid, but she looks very different from the original Ariel. The original Ariel has flowing red hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and Halle Bailey is an African American young woman. And so they look very different. And people, the purists, as you say, are like, we want her to look exactly like the animated character. And others are saying the Little Mermaid is a fictional character and mermaids are not real. Whichever actress best fits the role should be allowed to play it. And that's the controversy that's happening right now. Right? And so really, in my opinion, kind of a stupid controversy because it's a mermaid, right? Mermaids aren't real. Sorry to break it to everybody, at least as far as I know, ocean scientists have never discovered a mermaid. So I think, yeah, this is stupid. Like, doesn't matter the race of the person playing the role because mermaids aren't real. So I don't really understand the controversy. But some people, I think they are the purists, right? Who don't want the original story changed. Also, our kind of racial elements with some racist people who are, against having black actress play the role, which, yeah, is extra stupid in my opinion. In fact, Cassie, I was reading today that, IMDb. You're familiar with that website, right? IMDb. I believe it stands for the Internet Movie Database. I believe it stands for the Internet Movie Database. And it's a place where many English speakers go if we want to find a review or a rating for a movie. I think it's owned by Amazon.com actually, so it has an affiliation. It has an affiliation. That's what I read in the article. I just learned that today too. 나도 오늘 알게 된 거야. I just learned that today too. And so the IMDb actually has had to change their algorithm for the reviews that they receive, because on this website you can upload your own review after watching a movie. So the website shows you reviews of people who have watched the film who are not like professional critics, right? They are just like what the audience what the audience thinks generally. Well, the IMDb, they announced that for this movie, The Little Mermaid, they had to switch their algorithm because they were receiving so many negative reviews, like 1-star reviews, which is the lowest review that you can give on that website is a 1-star review. And they said that it wasn't necessarily individual users, but it was like a bot attack. So somebody went out of their way to like program some kind of bot attack to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews. Went out of their way. 일부러 뭐뭐하다. 일부러. Some kind of bot attack to give this movie a bunch of 1-star review. They said that it wasn't necessarily individual users, but it was like a bot attack. So somebody went out of their way. 어떤 사람들이 일부러 프로그램을 써서 평점 1점을 줬다. Somebody went out of their way. Went out of their way to like program some kind of a bot attack to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews. Went out of their way to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews. Somebody went out of their way to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews. 평점 1점을 주려고 일부러 bot attack을 사용했다. Way to like program some kind of a bot attack to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews.
I'm a little horrified by
IMDb. Controversial. IMDb.
Might be there's like some Little Mermaid.
And they said that it wasn't necessarily individual users, but it was like a bot attack. So somebody went out of their way to like program some kind of bot attack to give this movie a bunch of 1-star reviews. And we don't know why exactly. Like it might be there's like some Little Mermaid purist who thinks that the live action remake goes away from the original story, but it could also be about the racist element with maybe some racist people hating that a black character is so prominently displayed in the film. So yeah, I don't know exactly why that is happening. It's interesting, but it's also kind of sad, I think. It is. For me, I didn't have a problem with Halle Bailey being the main character. I didn't have a problem with Halle Bailey being the main character. But from the commercials that I've seen, I'm a little bit horrified by how Flounder looks in the live remake. Flounder is so cute in the animation. And a real live fish is just not as cute as an animated fish. And he looks kind of creepy in the trailers that I've seen so far. And he looks kind of creepy in the trailers that I've seen so far. I don't know why people aren't debating about the creepy Flounder rather than the beautiful actress we have singing for us. Well, like Finding Nemo. Nemo is an animated fish that's cute, so maybe they could do it in some areas, but yeah, I haven't seen anything about this movie other than the poster, so I can't really comment, but I will have to check that out and get back to you, Cassie. I'm sorry to hear about Flounder. He might give you nightmares. Cassie, I was thinking about this issue today and I realized something a little bit strange. Like, I want to know your opinion about this, and maybe my feeling is wrong. My feeling is wrong and I need to check it. I'm not sure. But for a fictional movie like The Little Mermaid, I don't really care if they change the race or the place, if they want to change some elements to remix and retell the story, and especially an old story if they want to update it for a modern audience, because a movie that's 30 plus years old, something that we love from our childhood. But if we were to show it to kids today, maybe they would say, "Oh, it's old-fashioned. They don't want to watch it, right?" So it could be like a way to connect with the children these days too, right? To share our stories with them is by remaking a movie. But for remakes that are fictional, I don't care. Change the characters, change the place, change the setting a little bit, tweak it, make it relevant for today. That's cool. But if it's an historical story, if it's not fictional, but it's like a real story, then that kind of makes me wonder, like, should we be tweaking the characters? Should we be tweaking the languages? This especially drives me crazy if it's like a story that takes place, maybe in Spain or Japan or China, and the characters are speaking English. I hate this. Like, it almost makes me want to not watch the movie. I'm like, why are they speaking English in Japan? Like, they should be speaking Japanese, So that kind of thing really drives me up the wall a little bit. What are your feelings about that? If it's not a fictional story but a non-fictional story. Honestly, even for fictional stories, I think it depends on the context, because there was actually a controversy a few years ago for Ghost in the Shell, which is I don't know much about Ghost in the Shell, but I believe it started as some sort of Japanese sci-fi franchise or comic. Yeah, I think it's an anime. It's an anime originally. Yeah, that one. The main character in the live-action remake was played by Scarlett Johansson, and that caused a little bit of uproar. That caused a little bit of uproar as well. That caused a little bit of uproar as well, but in the reverse. Instead of a white character being replaced by a person of color,
it was an Asian character being replaced by a white character, and it got the same hate. Not quite as much hate as this one, but a lot of hate. So I don't know, I think it's hard. The world we live in, like, there's just so many different cultures that we're all blending together.